Event, I'm literally hours away, right? Like six and a half hours or so. I mean, I'm doing this live at 2:00, but at 8:30, I'm doing my live show. This is live on the web now, and you might be seeing a recording. I'm going to loop it, but I will be live in person at 8:30 p.m. in my play that's at the San Francisco Fringe, right there at 277 Taylor. How do we get tickets, Emil? Well, 277 Taylor. Here's a tip: bring cash. It's cash only box office, no credit cards. If you want to buy a ticket and use credit cards, they're on the screen right now. If you're watching on YouTube or watching on Facebook, you can get that link and you can go there, eventbrite.com, SF Fringe, Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. Get your ticket, and then I'll see you at 277 Taylor Street in San Francisco. There it is. Here's my poster. Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. I don't think the QR code works if I flash it up there. It might, but there may be too many electronic particles in the way of the QR code working. But there it is. Emil Amok, Lost NPR. 3 shows only. I did one on Saturday. This tonight, 8:30, Thursday, and then Saturday at 1:00. Saturday at 1:00. It's a matinee. So if you're you just don't want to go to San Francisco at night, there are people like that. You want to go out during the day. It's too hot where you are. It's a cool theater. Show up at 12:45, get a good seat. 1:00, do the show. 1 hour. You're in the city, get to enjoy yourself, see a museum, do something. But Emil Amok, Lost NPR host at the San Francisco Fringe. It'll be a treat. 1 p.m. Saturday, tonight, Thursday, 8:30 p.m. And I'm excited. I'm excited because it's one of the first times that I've done a live show since the pandemic. If you've been following me somewhat, I do these shows over the air, or not the air, the web, on the internet, live, and you can catch them on amok.com or catch them on YouTube or on Facebook, fb.com/emilguillermo.media. And it's just a way to work out in the pandemic, right? When we were all locked down. Here I am in my virtual closet, and this is where I did a couple of performances from here. One in Kansas City, a couple that, in San Francisco when we were all locked down. So this is only like the second Fringe Festival I've been to since we've gone out. And, here's the thing, the pandemic isn't over. You know that, though, right? A friend of mine said, Emil, I got a ticket and I was ready to go. I can't go. I got COVID. Oh, man. All right. Well, I'm gonna be back again. If you miss this, I'll be back again. After these San Francisco shows this week, I'm going to New York to do a show there, and then do my Emil Amok, Lost NPR host at Under St. Mark's again. So I'd say check your local listings, but check amok.com, my website, to find out when. But the best thing would just be to go tonight. I'm excited. I'm keyed up. And here's the thing. I'm so excited. I feel the back injury I suffered on Friday. I almost canceled last Saturday's show because I really had a hard time moving around. And I could only stand up. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't move about. And even my friend of mine noticed, Emil, you seem a little subdued. I wasn't subdued. I wasn't under drugs or anything. Advil, you count that. But I really was somewhat impaired. But I didn't cancel because even though I couldn't sit down, and I couldn't bend down, I couldn't reach for anything, I could stand and I could talk. So why cancel? So we did the show, Tonight on the Exit Theater blog site, I put down, my back hasn't improved. It really hasn't. I still can't bend. And so I announced my understudy, Emil Amok, will be played by my understudy, Emil Guillermo. You don't have to be an insider to get that joke, right? I'm going to be there. I did say that, unfortunately, we had to cancel the infamous Cirque du Soleil grand finale. So no weird contortion. Not tonight, at least. But everything else, it's a history show. You may not have gotten that, but it's how history has been like a shroud that I've had to cut through, or how it's been a yoke that I've had to carry, the history of my father. And I say this because a lot of people don't understand this, because I'm an older person, and it struck me when I was watching something on television a couple of years ago. They were talking about the last descendants of the slaves, who were all like in the 90s and the hundreds. They were older, right? And I said, boy, colonization is like slavery 2.0. I mean, there are no chains. The chains are in your head. And I'm a direct descendant of the original colonized people to come to America in the 10s, 20s, 1930s. 30,000 Filipinos. And we're one of the last. And just to tell you, how the significance of this, there's this generation that you don't hear about. A friend of mine just turned 90 over the weekend. He's one of the few. His mother and father came at the same time in the 20s, were able to start a family soon after. And now they've turned 90, 95. They have two brothers. They're part of that. They're the second generation, but that was not missed, right? Because the father came in the 20s. But for other people like myself, my father had all these roadblocks put in front of him about from starting a family. I explained that in the play. And how is it that I should be like my friends who celebrated their 90th birthday this weekend? Instead, I'm young and pretty. Why is that? The play explores that. It's history. And so this is a unique perspective of Filipino-American history. But make no mistake, it's Filipino-American history. Emphasize the American part, because it wouldn't be as bad as it is if it weren't American. So check it out. Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. I talk about being at NPR, and last hired, first fired, that kind of thing. But this is not a grievance play. I identify the victims in this play. I identify the victims, and it isn't me. So there. Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. There's a QR code. You can also get the Eventbrite thing there. It's on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Just click, copy, paste, go to Eventbrite, EVENTBRITE, eventbrite.com, and just look for Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, SF Fringe. Get your ticket. Like I said, it's cash only at the door, 277 Taylor Street, so Eventbrite may be the best bet, right? You buy your ticket. I'll see you there tonight. It should be fun, because it's the second show, then the third show Saturday at 1 p.m. Not holding back anything tonight, not holding back anything on Saturday. It should be fun. It's just the truth. And, it's this is the thing about the Fringe. I don't know if you've seen some of the other videos that I posted that I've looped. There's a reason why the Fringe is so addictive, and that is because, number one, it's sheer luck that you get picked. It's by lottery. It's by lottery. It's not curated, meaning whatever shows up, who knows? It's dangerous. And you just trust that there's an artist sensibility, which is why it's kind of hurtful when people say, well, you call that art? Well, yeah, it's different. It's not commercial, but it is closer to the truth and closer to this real, there's just something raw and something authentic about a Fringe. And I've been now to about 8 of these around the country. Big ones, small ones. This may be the smallest of the Fringes, and only because they've sort of moved into a new theater. It's not as big as, say, the ones that I've been to in Orlando or San Diego or Washington, D.C., or even the Frigid Fringe. The Frigid Fringe was just 2 theaters, but it was pretty large Fringe in February of this year. But like I said, the Fringe has this spirit, the spirit of the Fringe. There's a kind of danger that you're not going to get watching Netflix, watching, something commercial. I mean, it's not Barbie. I mean, no knock on Barbie. I love Greta Gerwig. I love Barbie. Haven't seen it because I'd like to see the Hollywood stuff, all the strikes end. But you want to talk about independent artists getting together and putting together a show and performing art, that's the Fringe. Whether it's in San Francisco or St. Louis, Orlando, or Hollywood. They have a Hollywood Fringe, believe it or not. Just finished a couple months ago. One up in Vancouver. I got friends this week in Edmonton doing the Fringe. It's a right, and the Big Daddy Fringe is in Edinburgh, Scotland. I'd love to get there sometime. It's expensive and it's kind of a haul, but it's sort of like the Mecca of all Fringers. But tonight will still be special. We'll still make tonight special. Thursday night, August 17th, 8:30 p.m. And then again, August 19th, Saturday at 1 p.m. Get your tickets on Eventbrite. Like I said, it's a history show. And history is important because no one, now there's this movement to erase history. There's this movement to shut people up. There's this movement to take away the stories of people in the past. It's usually a power thing, right? People who are taste sensitive. Oh, you don't need that story. Oh, we've heard that story. Oh, yeah, you've heard that story before? When Steven Spielberg tells a Holocaust story, do you say, we've heard that story before? Let's try to see the anti-Semitic critic say that about a Steven Spielberg story. Or, if it's a story about fatherhood or motherhood or parenting or whatever. And I see that said about, oh, well-worn, we've seen that. We haven't seen it. Well, especially the Filipino story. The Filipino American. I'm not talking about Filipinos in the jungles. I'm talking about Filipino Americans. This is American history. So there is this trend, this erasure. There is this trend to silence. There is this trend to not tell these stories, to deny these stories. But then there's this counter trend of getting history taught in the schools, elementary schools, public schools, junior high, Washington, Chicago. I mean, a real push. I mean, what's happening in the college level, critical race theory, anti-critical. That's BS, right? It's not critical race theory, but the people are out there saying, oh, we want to hear positive things about America. Okay. This is a positive thing about America. America tried to be imperialistic. America tried to dominate a sovereign nation, the Philippines, They succeeded. The Philippines eventually prevailed. American history. Is that negative? No, it's good for humanity. America got out of the colonization business, but also America was in it. And it was costly to a lot of people. Innocent victims who got in the way. Like my dad, like me to an extent. Talk about that. That's in the show. Emil, Amok, lost NPR host. Now, as far as NPR goes, well, I mean, I was there. I'll tell you my story. I haven't really ever told that story about what happened, how I got there, what happened while I was there. It's interesting. Tells you something about the media. Tells you something about our institutions. Tells you something how media works. A little bit about affirmative action in the workplace. A little bit about diversity. And then, of course, you got to talk about college admissions, because I was one of the first after the Civil Rights Act to receive what people perceived as affirmative action. What was that like? Did it work? Why did it or did it not? Just things that I explore in my hour show. Now, Emil, that sounds like a lot. It is a lot, but, you know, it's a rich history. There's a lot to say. And did I say there will be a few laughs? I say a few because I don't want to make it sound like a stand-up show. I mean, I do stand up. I do use humor, but, you know, that's the measure. The measure of a show like that is it's funny to the degree that it's painful. Well, that's true. I talk about 1904, the World's Fair. I think I've been saying Chicago. For some reason, I've been thinking Chicago. But it's St. Louis, the St. Louis World's Fair. The Meet Me in St. Louis. Judy Garland. Remember, you ever watch that old movie? You don't watch the Turner Classic Movie Channel? Judy Garland, Meet Me in St. Louis. Right? The fair. And as fate would have it, I was there. I was at Washington University at St. Louis briefly, studying to be a Jewish American writer. I mean, that was my teacher, Stanley Elkin. I love Stanley. But that's also where I met Ishmael Reed. So, Washington University, that was the fairground, right? I mean, after you build the administrative offices for the fair, funny thing happens. Fair goes. What do you do with the grounds? It became Wash U. And so it's ironic because that was the scene of the human zoos when Filipinos were brought here to sell colonization. I talk about that. I mention it today because there was a news story today. I'll mention it in the show tonight. It shows you how the show grows and evolves. But they kept bodies of people who were on display at the World's Fair, the 1904 World's Fair. They kept their bodies for the sole purpose of trying to figure out why Filipinos were inferior to whites. Can't believe I just said that. But that's true. The belief that Filipinos were inferior to whites, they kept the Filipinos' bodies, the bodies that were on display to sell colonialism to the American public. They kept their bodies all these years because for scientific reasons, that was the goal. We need to find out about these people. Are they people? They're a subspecies. The Filipinos. That's why we conquered them. Finally, after more than 100 years, the remains are being repatriated. And some of the remains, they kept brains of these people. Because science suggested that, if we kept their brains and we looked into their brains, we'd know why Filipinos were subhuman. I mean, they didn't want to wait around for this web talk show. They had to find out then and there. And finally, they announced that the Smithsonian, they had access to these remains. They're repatriating the remains. Because the idea of figuring out why or how Filipinos were inferior to whites was just, can you imagine? That's a horrendous scientific inquiry, scientific question. But that's how racist the world was. Turn of the century, 1904. It's real. It's true. So I talk about those things. See, it's painful, so it's got to be funny. Emil, Amok, lost NPR host, found under St. Mark's. There I'm holding up maybe the QR code works. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. If not, just go to Eventbrite. I put it up there. Put it up there on the screen for you. EVENTBRITE. It's a Filipino American history for dummies. And you don't have to be that dumb. So don't worry if you don't qualify. Don't worry. I mean, you can qualify. Don't worry. Tonight, Thursday, 8:30 p.m., Saturday, 1 p.m., 277 Taylor Street in San Francisco. One last thing, because I know that people who may live in the suburbs or who may live outside the city, they might be concerned a little bit about San Francisco. Emil, we read all this stuff about San Francisco. We're worried about San Francisco. The guy who, who's spreading these rumors and lies, it's people who don't live in San Francisco, people who don't know. So there was one conservative commentator and said, the retailer Gump. No, it's not like Forrest Gump. It's Gumps, Gump''S, possessive. You don't call it the retailer Gump. It's Gumps. That, and San Franciscans have always been going to Gumps. Except, I think I've been to Gumps once or twice in my life. It's a kind of people of a certain class go to Gumps. Just like, everyone may go to Target, except I don't know. Do you still go to Target? Certain people go to. Did you go to Neiman Marcus? The certain stores appeal to certain people. Woolworths, everyone went to Woolworths, right? So Gumps was one of those acquired, I guess you would say it was a high-class store. But the thing about Gumps is it was just old-time San Francisco. And the owner of Gumps put an ad in saying, they may not stay after more than 160 years. They may leave. Everyone's leaving the city because they're fearful of what's happening to the city. Look, there's a lot of reasons. And some people are blaming the lockdown. Some people are blaming how businesses aren't revitalizing the downtown. They're telling people to stay home. Well, who knows? We may get another bout of the coronavirus. But, it's complex. And San Francisco has always kind of warded off some of the things that have happened to most urban centers, where the downtown core gets abandoned and then has to be revitalized by new people, new blood, new interest. You go to cities like St. Louis, you go to cities like Cincinnati, go to cities like Detroit, right? Over the years, you see the downtown's abandoned. And it's not as simple as saying, oh, it's the coronavirus. Oh, it's homeless. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's... You need visionaries, certainly. You need leaders. But, it's kind of desperate, though, when retailers put ads in the paper and say, hey, we're crying out for help because we want to save the city. Look, everyone wants to save the city. And we're trying to do it fairly. Want to do it with in a way that addresses all the needs. Boy, you talk about the homeless crisis. You could talk about the funding of mental health hospitals. You can talk about all sorts of issues. The dumping of patients out in the streets. It's complex. But sometimes this is true. Sometimes we see the debate play out in media, and sometimes that becomes larger than what actually is happening. Sometimes the debate over, San Francisco is failing, San Francisco is falling. Sometimes that is reported more than the actual facts of things happening. Now, I'm not trying to deny that things are going on in San Francisco that are concerning. But sometimes the sensationalistic aspect of the reporting make people more fearful than they should be, as opposed to being more open to helping, more open to finding solutions. Look, I feel for the politicians who are trying. I mean, they've thrown money at this problem. Nothing's happened. They've tried to be logical and illogical. Open air drug markets. I don't know. But I'm just trying to do art in the Tenderloin. And if you can do art in the Tenderloin in a theater at the San Francisco Fringe, the Cutting Ball Theater at 277 Taylor Street, you've got hope. You're not on opioids, you're on hopioids. You have hope for the city at night. You have hope for art. You have hope for a future. Look, I'm a native San Franciscan. I got to say this, right? I mean, I bounced all over the country, but I still identify San Franciscan, native born. I'll tell you, the hospital, the junior high, the elementary, the high school, And I know a lot of people don't care about that because they're not natives. And they say, well, I don't know, that's a big thing. It's not. It's just that the stewards often aren't acting like real stewards. And every time I see a wrong turn or every time I see something bad, I feel it. I feel it as a native. I feel it as a native. So I just want to assure you that if you come to 277 Taylor Street tonight, we'll put on a good show. You'll learn something about Filipino American history. You'll have a laugh. You'll have some thoughts. You'll say something like, oh my God, I didn't know that. I bet you, if you already knew some of this history, maybe you knew it from listening to some of this show. Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, found in San Francisco. SF Fringe, 277 Taylor Street. There's the address. The address to the Eventbrite ticket. If you use credit cards, use Eventbrite because it's cash only at the door. All right? Just telling you. Show starts tonight at 8:30. Get there 15 minutes before. Show starts Saturday at 1 o'clock. Get there a little bit before, 12:45. Good show. You'll laugh. You'll learn. If I bring some onions, maybe you'll cry. Speaking of onions, the Maui onions, man, no onions needed to cry. We're up to over 111 and counting in Maui. And one of the things is, I'm focused on doing my show. I still do my columns on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. I've had to write about politics like, Trump, and today DeSantis says he's going after Ramaswamy, the Asian American, in the debates because he's the replacement Trump. But the other big story is the wildfires in Maui. It's so sad because now they're identifying people. And the first few names identified, 2 of the 3 were Filipinos. I could just tell. I could tell by their names. And so let's wait to see all the confirmations and all the names, but we got more than 111. And it's not going to be easy. I can't imagine, the idea that some people are there still as tourists because, that Maui, that's their economy. They need the tourists. But there's something macabre about finding dead, identifying the dead while people are enjoying the beach. There's just something that doesn't make sense. So I only mention that because, you do your art, you try to bring a little joy, bring a little insight into the world. But then there's this unfortunate thing. Life, it doesn't stop. The news cycle doesn't stop. And we have not finished up with Maui. All right, I'm going to end it there. Check out, I'll probably write another column at some point before the end of the week on Emil Amok, or on catch it on ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, or Inquirer.net, the diaspora website for Filipinos. Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. Don't miss it. Thursday tonight, 8:30 p.m. Saturday, 1 p.m. this weekend. Eventbrite.com. That's where you get your tickets. A lot of people say, Emil, thank you for this. Yeah, I end my show with a little meditation. The loving kindness meditation, where you send it out to others and then it comes back twofold, threefold. So I end with this. As I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Emil Amok to you. This is our Takeout. Emil Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Live. Catch the repeats on amok.com or on YouTube or on Facebook. Hey, I'll mention it again. I can't wait to see you tonight, 8:30 p.m. Emil Amok's Takeout. Oh, Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, SF Fringe. Till then, mahal kita.